All right, welcome to this explainer. Look, I want you to just imagine something for a second. Try to put yourself directly in the boots of a military commander, right in the middle of a literal life-or-death standoff. It's December 8th, 1971. You're standing at the edge of this massive, imposing river. Your superior officer has literally just flown in to give you a direct, completely unmistakable order. Do not cross. Wait for the engineers. Wait for the bridge to be repaired. Do the safe thing. But here's the kicker. You've already decided you're absolutely not waiting.
Okay, let's dive into this, because this right here, this is where military history shifts on its axis. Your superior is Lieutenant General Jagjit Singh Arora, affectionately called Jaggy by his peers. And your reply to his direct order to stand down becomes absolute legend. Jaggy, over my dead body. You are Lieutenant General Sagat Singh, and you are flat out refusing to stop. But I mean, you've got to ask yourself, how does an officer get to the point where they can look their commander in the eye and say something like that?
So you've got two completely different playbooks here. On one hand, there's the official Army headquarters plan. It's cautious, right? Hold the line, don't cross, just wait for support. It's the standard, safe military strategy. But then you have Sagat Singh's vision. He knew Dhaka was the real objective, the ultimate prize, and he firmly believed that waiting just meant losing the momentum. It is an incredibly audacious call to make. I mean, the stakes couldn't possibly be higher. So where did you get the nerve to make this kind of massive gamble?
Section 1. Forged in the ranks. A career built the hard way.
Now, what's really interesting about this is, to understand that 1971 defiance, we really have to flash back to his origins. Because Sagat Singh didn't just waltz into a high-ranking command. Born in 1919, he was the oldest of 9 kids in a village in Rajasthan, and his dad served in the Bikaner Camel Corps. So soldiering was quite literally in his blood. Right after his intermediate exams in 1938, he didn't stay in college. He enlisted as a Naik, a corporal, in that exact same Camel Corps. And over the next 2 decades, he gritted his way up, earning every single rank. A commission during World War II, serving out in Iraq and Iran, helping absorb state forces into the newly formed Indian Army, until he finally hit colonel by 1961.
And this leads us to this incredibly fascinating moment in his career. Normally, a typical parachute commander has extensive jump experience and years of really specific airborne training. But Sagat Singh? In September 1961, at 42 years old, he gets handed command of India's only parachute brigade with absolutely 0 jumps. None. He had never jumped out of a plane in his life. But he didn't just sit comfortably behind a desk giving orders. No way. He earned his maroon beret and his wings the exact same way every other paratrooper did, by jumping out of planes right alongside his men.
Section 2. Breaking the myth. From Goa to the Chinese border.
That relentless, lead-from-the-front attitude, it totally defined his next campaigns. Just 3 months after getting that parachute brigade, he leads them into Goa. Now, officially, his orders were just to assist the main thrust. Unofficially, well, his columns tore through minefields, smashed through roadblocks, and completely bypassed everyone's expectations by making 4 rapid river crossings. He ended up being the very first Indian force to reach Goa's capital, Panaji. And in this brilliant, almost cinematic show of swagger, he ordered his men to swap their heavy combat helmets for their maroon berets right before they marched into the capital.
Now, as you might guess, this didn't exactly make him super popular with the opposing side. In fact, Portugal was so furious with his lightning advance that they actually put a $10,000 bounty on his head. Yeah, there were literally wanted posters with Sagat Singh's face pinned up in Lisbon. But honestly, he was just getting started.
And this brilliantly illustrates what he did next. Let's fast forward to 1967. As a major general commanding the 17 Mountain Division up on the China border in Sikkim, his forces faced this massive, looming challenge. At Nathu and Chola, his division engages the Chinese army and fights them to an absolutely decisive standstill. He permanently broke the long-standing myth that Chinese soldiers were somehow unbeatable in that rugged terrain.
Section 3. The Fall of Dhaka, the 1971 masterstroke.
Which brings us right back to the climax in 1971, the Bangladesh Liberation War. Sagat Singh is now a lieutenant general commanding the IV Corps. His forces have just torn through East Pakistan, but now they've hit a literal wall, the Meghna River. Guys, this river is a massive 3.6 kilometers wide at its narrowest point. That's huge. The retreating Pakistani forces have blown up the only bridge and dug right into the opposite bank, betting that the river is going to stall the Indian Army long enough for international pressure to force a ceasefire. Army headquarters tells him to hold, but instead, working with Group Captain Chandan Singh of the Air Force, he plans this insane heli bridge. Step 1, bypass the prepared enemy defenses entirely. Step 2, Literally airlift his soldiers over the 3.6-kilometer river using a fleet of helicopters. Step 3. Land them safely on the direct road to Dhaka. This audacious, sky-high risk maneuver, that is exactly why he told his commanding officer over my dead body when he was told to just wait.
So the helicopters fly, and it works perfectly. It's flawless. By December 12th, Indian artillery is in range of Dhaka, and just 4 days later, the war is entirely over. Just pause for a second and think about this number. 93,000 Pakistani soldiers are taken prisoner. To put that into perspective, that remains the largest military surrender since the end of World War II.
But here's the real measure of the man. During that historic, world-changing surrender ceremony, Sagat Singh didn't push to the front for the cameras. He just stood quietly in the background. It wasn't his name on the surrender document, sure, but it was entirely his campaign underneath it, and his enemies absolutely knew it. When Dhaka fell, Indian officers found a Pakistani Army dossier on him, explicitly naming him as the Indian general they feared the most. I mean, the guy had never lost a battle, and for his incredible actions, he was awarded the Padma Bhushan, which is just a massive, massive honor.
Section 4. The Cost of Greatness, Unfairness and Profound Sacrifice.
Now, we kind of need to slow down the pace here a bit, because life, even for a legendary, undefeated general, is rarely just a simple victory lap. We have to look at the aftermath of his peak military victory. Despite his flawless record, despite capturing Dhaka, despite the sheer, undeniable brilliance of his campaigns, after the war he was passed over. A junior officer was actually promoted above him in the military hierarchy. It was a profound professional slight. A fellow general later went on record calling it deeply unfair and unjust. A literal war hero treated far worse than he deserved by the bureaucracy.
But honestly, those professional slights pale in comparison to the personal cost he endured. 2 of his 4 sons had actually followed in his footsteps into the army. And then, in 1975 and 1976, separated by just 8 agonizing months, he lost both of them, not in the blaze of combat, but in completely random accidents. A scooter accident in Delhi, a Jeep accident in Poonch. It was the heavy, ordinary unfairness of life striking a man who had survived so much war. It's heartbreaking. Yet, incredibly, he just kept going. He always had.
Lieutenant General Sagat Singh passed away on September 26, 2001, at the age of 82 in New Delhi. And upon hearing the news, a fellow general remarked that he was a great general who had become a legend in his lifetime, adding that India probably won't ever see anyone quite like him again. And you know, his legacy really does live on. Jackie Shroff portrayed him in a 2018 film, and the Army even held formal commemorations for his centennial back in 2019. Which brings us to the absolute core takeaway of this entire explainer. Sagat Singh was never the officer chasing the shining medal or the next big title. Every turning point we've looked at today, the parachute command he wasn't trained for, the capital he wasn't ordered to take, the massive river he wasn't supposed to cross, he took those actions because they were the right call, not the safe ones. His life wasn't just about a single act of bravery, it was a lifetime of consistently choosing to go further than he was told to.
Look, stories like his often get buried under the big headlines of history. So if this explainer is the very first time you have heard Lieutenant General Sagat Singh's name, I want you to go down to the comments right now and type his name. Comment it below, because that is exactly how a legacy of pure initiative like this stays alive. It leaves us with a really critical question. In today's highly bureaucratic, play-it-safe world, is there still room for leaders who choose the right call over the safe one? While you ponder that, let me know who is the next unsung hero we should cover. Thanks so much for learning with me today, and I'll see you in the next one.